Hey, I'm Todd. Thanks for choosing to watch my video, and if you would subscribe it, like it, all that stuff, that'd be great. Otherwise, enjoy the video, and I hope it gives you the information you need and is helpful to you. Take care. Alright, so we're planning on doing a radiator replacement on a 2008 Dodge Charger 5.7 liter. Got the cover off, it just says friction fits here. And it just slides off. Our air cleaner's aftermarket, so a little different. Probably 8mm 5/16 clamp here though for the tube that goes over your air cleaner. Got that off. We'll want to disconnect this by pushing this button here and taking this off. And we have a 10mm bolt down here. 10mm bolt down here. Take those off and see about getting this cooling fan. Will be dropping through the bottom probably, and along with the radiator goes down the bottom. And then also here's the upper clamp here. Use the pliers, squeeze it, and remove it. So that's what we'll be taking off, and then we'll go down below. You'll probably want a coolant, something that catches coolant down below when you're taking hoses off. So, and take the radiator cap off. It will help coolant flow out of the radiator. Push and twist. That's all there's to it. Alright, I'll take the 10mm bolts out. Probably just use this and a 1/4" ratchet probably, and disconnect that electrical connector. This friction fit holds this panel in place here, this little clips. Take this out apparently, and that's what they want. That's what we'll do. We won't question them. Well, doesn't really look that accessible though, does it? But anyway, that's what they wanted us to do apparently. Or they're just pointing it out. Oh, remove the closure panels. We did that. That's great. And remove the cooling fan assembly. Got the bolts out. So, going down below. So, passenger side bottom. Here's the drain. Boom. And there we go. We'll drain the coolant. Then we can take the cooling fan out after we take the upper hose off. So it wants me to remove the cooling fan assembly, which is reasonable. However, it seems to be really tight up against the clamp. Maybe someone put the clamp in the wrong spot, but I'll be removing that. And honestly, you don't have to take the cooling fan off because everything's coming, well, the cooling fan's supposed to go up through the top. But I bet you could drop the cooling fan and the radiator as an assembly down through the bottom. Once you've taken off your two 13mm bolts on each side, the other side is exactly the same. And this bracket comes down. Move this push pin. Centerpiece will come out, and then you can take the rest out. Same with the other side. So you can see you run into trouble sometimes. Let's pull that out. There are handy pliers to remove the clamp. If you're lucky, this edge will catch on this and it'll stay tight or loose. Let's see if I can do it here. It was on there for a second, just magically popped off when I walked away. Ooh. Sometimes it'll stay in there, sometimes it won't. So we can take the hose off. Do want to be careful not to get coolant on your serpentine belt. If you get antifreeze on it, there's a good chance it'll make noise. Maybe have a garden hose handy so you can rinse it off as quick as possible. So try and pull this off gently to not splatter coolant. I'll just twist it out of the way here. Got some springs inside there, but there we are. And I did do the same with the lower hose because, as I pointed out, it was kind of in the way. So hopefully this will be enough space, and I am just going to choose to take the radiator out. Take the radiator fan out this way. A turn and a twist. I was hitting this, but I twisted it as you saw, and it came out. Alright. We'll go down below and remove that lower bracket and drop the radiator. Oh, we got to disconnect the AC condenser from this, so we'll find some bolts and undo them. Millimeter bolt up here you need to get. For the condenser over here as well. I can't quite show you on the camera, but it's up a little higher. It's up here. Two 10mm bolts. So we'll zip those out. Hopefully it'll separate the condenser from the radiator. And then, as I mentioned previously, we can take the 13mm bolts out of both ends and let this drop down along with, most likely, the radiator. Might be good to have a friend come over and help hold it. Maybe a little awkward. I might use an exhaust stand of some kind to help hold it myself. Alright, so we still have upper condenser bolts to remove. However, they don't show a picture on how to do it. And they're up a little high. Can't get them from up top as far as I can tell. So I'm taking this out. I have it supported right now. I'm going to lift up the radiator and condenser. I'm going to take this out of here, and I'll put this exhaust support on the radiator, I believe is my plan. And then we'll get those upper 10mm bolts. And we'll have some coolant running on our head. Pretty sweet. There's one bolt up there. You can see that plastic shielding in the way, and there's going to be something similar on the other side with also the plastic shielding in the way. And you may or may not have a power steering or transmission cooler up there as well, that extra deal there. So that's what I'm working with. And I'll be back when I got those two bolts out. Two upper bolts out, and we'll just see if I can get the radiator to drop down. It's out. There was a hose hung up on here. Just slid it out. Radiator's out. Condenser kind of balancing there. It did say to take the upper brackets out, however I did not. 10mm bolts up top, one for each, holding it in place. We just want to transfer over the nice plastic pieces here. We'll just transfer those over, and maybe whatever hardware doesn't come with the new one, but it should come with all this stuff. Rubber boot may or may not come with it. I'll take this one off too. Boom. And there might be one on the bottom of the radiator. Oh. The other one is on the bracket. So that is removing your radiator on your 2008 Dodge Charger and on other model years, I'm sure, and makes. So we've got our pieces back up there. Got the little plastic pieces on the radiator. It's interesting because my old radiator was 1 inch thick, and there was apparently 3 options, so I made sure people knew about the thickness of the radiator, which for me was 1 inch. We got the new one, and it's not 1 inch, it's bigger. But if it fits, it's going to be great and means probably improved cooling. So, but my tip is to put the bottom ones in. Don't start any bolts until they're all in and started by hand, but we'll start on the bottom, and that should help with aligning the top ones, which are just tougher to get to. So we'll let this hang a little bit as much as we can, then we can lift this up and line up our bolts, start them by hand again, and you should be good to go. And one thing with all radiators, be careful the bolts you use are the right length, because they can actually poke through the radiator if you end up with long ones for some reason. Some are even closer than that, so I've seen it happen, so be aware of the bolt length. All right, so we got our bolts in for the condenser. It worked pretty well to start the bottom and then go to the top. I've got these just started here. Everything's set up, just started here. Now, again, it might be helpful to have a friend hold that up so they can hold it into the upper mount brackets, or if you take them out, then it won't be any issue at all, I suppose, and that's why they want you to take them out. And for 5 minutes worth of work, or 2 minutes, it might be worth it. But I think they're lined up. It pushes up pretty well, so probably tighten these up a little bit and verify that they're in the upper mount areas, and then we'll be good to go. Over here, get that hose back in place as soon as you can, just because it was interfering, I think, with me putting the air conditioning condenser and the radiator together. It was kind of in the way, so it's in its proper spot. We can bolt up those 13mm bolts once we verified if you still have the upper mounts in place, and we'll tighten those up. And continue the reverse procedure to install and then fill with coolant. I'll give you some more tips maybe as I see them needed. Okay, one tip I try to give is when you see the indentations on the hose, do your best to match up the indentation with the clamp. So put the clamp right back where it was. Your best chance for it to not leak. We have seen sometimes those spring clamps leaking if they're not in the same spot. Maybe it means a weak clamp. Maybe it's not. But maybe you get some new spring clamps from the dealership or get some worm type clamps and replace them if you want. But there's a tip on that. And we're just putting it back together. Not too much to it, and we'll fill it with coolant. Don't forget to plug your cooling fan back in. These push pins too out of the flapper. You took them out down below and I took them out up here so this would give me more arm room on both sides. Just another one of those pins. Push in, pull out. I'm putting about a 50-50 mix, about 1.5 gallons. Almost to the max. So we'll put the cap on and we'll run it with 1.5 50-50 mix. And so we'll run it for about 5 minutes or so, put the temperature on hot inside the vehicle and turn the fan on so you can feel some air. In 5 or 10 minutes you should start to feel some warmth. And if you don't, maybe rev it up to 2,000 RPMs for a minute or two and you'll probably start to feel some heat. If not, you can certainly shut it off. Double check your coolant level here after a little bit. Just make sure it's not too hot. Turn it halfway, will relieve some pressure. There's a halfway spot on, halfway off, and then push down for the rest of the way. So that halfway point usually relieves some pressure. Right over here somewhere. Maybe back in the bottle, who knows. So we're gonna run it, get some heat, take it for a test drive for 7 or 10 miles, get it up to operating temperature, and then let it cool off for a couple hours and double check your fluid level. And top off as needed. Put your plates back in again, they just snap into place. Got your push pins in. Got your air cleaner assembly back on. And you can put your top back on, and that'll be doing your radiator on your Dodge Charger. Good luck to you.